Well, a fresh geopolitical storm is forming, not in Europe, not in Middle East, but in the island nation of Cuba. And this time it involves superpower rivalries, oil blockades, and whispers of regime change. You're watching Times XP, and we are talking about the global chessboard. Tensions are rising after growing cooperation between Cuba and none other than Russia. Recent deployments and developments in Havana have sparked concern in Washington. Here, some analysts believe that Moscow is expanding influence close to the US territory, a move that reminds many of Cold War era rivalries linked to Russian President Vladimir Putin. And the US is responding that too really fast. Cuba is facing a major energy collapse. The world knows about it. The island is currently struggling with a severe fuel shortage. Petrol supplies are drying up. Maybe power cuts are becoming more frequent there. Public transportation is slowing down. The situation has grown so serious that airlines have begun cancelling the flights, disrupting the tourism there, one of Cuba's biggest income sources. And also, the oil blockade is at the center of this crisis. The crisis is being linked to sanctions and supply restrictions imposed by the White House. The US has warned multiple countries not to supply oil to Cuba. Here, officials say that such pressure is meant to push political and economic reforms. But critics argue that it is pushing the ordinary Cuban citizens into deeper hardship. We hear Trump is sending a strong signal. US President Donald Trump has confirmed that Washington is now directly negotiating with Cuban leadership. Well, his administration is reportedly exploring multiple strategies, diplomatic talks mixed with very strong economic pressure. Political observers also say that messaging hints at a possible push for major political change inside Cuba. But some analysts even describe it as a potential regime change strategy. Basically, there is a diplomatic phase of the negotiation here. Leading the discussion is US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He is reportedly managing back-channel negotiations while warning international partners about assisting Cuba's energy supply. According to the US, the goal is to increase pressure while keeping diplomatic doors open. But this crisis, it's more about oil, because energy shortages in Cuba do not just mean fewer cars on the road. They affect hospitals, food supply chain, electricity generation, and public transport system. Sanctions are also threatening the island's fragile medical infrastructure and their tourism economy, two lifelines for the country. So here's a bigger geopolitical fear. Experts warn that this whole situation is not only about Cuba. It reflects growing global power contest. Russia strengthening ties with Cuba could challenge American influence in the Caribbean here. And Washington's response signals that it is unwilling to allow strategic rivals to gain ground close to the US borders. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, there's a dangerous balance that is forming. Cuba is extremely desperate for fuel and economic relief. The US is increasing pressure through sanctions and negotiations. In the meantime, Russia is quietly expanding diplomatic and strategic engagement. Now, this triangle of power is creating a fragile and unpredictable situation. In the end, history is whispering again. Cuba has long been a symbolic battlefield of global rivalry. And today, the island once again stands at the center of a global power struggle. But this time, ladies and gentlemen, the conflict is being fought with oil shipments, sanctions, and diplomacy instead of missiles.